Hey everybody, this is Michelle.
And this is Julie.
Welcome to a Blonde, a Brunette, and a Mike podcast. What is our podcast all about, you ask?
Well, we're two 50-something women with life experience and, plenty to say.
Which is exactly what we're going to do right now. This just in.
I think you missed your calling, girl.
Yeah? Do I need to be a news reporter?
Yeah. The weather girl, at least.
The weather girl. Okay. Yeah, I could do that.
Well, Michelle's been dying to talk about political events going on and news and current events. Actually, I know it's shocking people because she doesn't watch the news or listen to the news.
This is true. There were some highlights over the last week that came to light that I thought were pretty interesting. Not that I'm dying to talk about them because I'm by no means an expert in any of the fields of reports that we're going to share with everybody. But
Michelle is giving her classic disclaimer. I'm just telling you. Does she not realize that these are our opinions? We don't have to be experts.
Well, yeah, we're not experts. But you know, I just say that because there are so many.
You don't need to explain. It's okay. I'm just kidding.
There's just so many aspects surrounding these stories. For example, these news stories you could find them. I was Googling a lot of this information, but then, and so they would come up, but a lot of the sources were, of course, networks, you know, ABC News, CBS News, Fox News, CNN. So they were all being covered, but in different ways. So depending on, you know, what a person's news source is and where they might listen, it might be different or have different content than what we're going to share.
And I think it's good to get different perspectives.
Sure.
Except Fox News. I don't want to listen to them. Did I say Fox News?
Fox News. Fox News? Fox. I don't get
For anyone
Fox
out
News.
there who listens to Fox News, I'm really sorry.
But Julie doesn't listen to Fox News. But some of it, I think some was from there. But that's what I'm saying is like a lot of the different networks, these are all stories. But what people, how they're presenting.
She's got some really good ones here. We're just going to throw a little commentary around these because some of these I was just seeing for the first time when she was showing them to me.
Interesting. It's just kind of interesting. For example, right here in Seattle, just a couple of days ago, Washington will no longer require prospective attorneys to pass the bar exam to practice law. So that was ruled by the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, just this last Friday.
Only in Washington. That's all.
Right?
Only in Washington. So what's your initial thought from that? So
I know just hearing that, because I think I heard it first on the radio the other day, and I was like, what? How can that be?
Well, there's a reason why this has even come up to begin with. And it's because it's not really affordable to become an attorney, to go to law school, all those kinds of things. It's really cost prohibitive. So, and to go to a good law school, which you have, you know, lawyers who work in different firms and things like that. And it's prestigious to be from certain programs and certain schools and things. But also, more importantly, it's hard for people to hire these attorneys who they may need help, but they can't afford them.
Right.
Whether it be for a criminal or a civil suit, something along those lines. Criminal probably more specifically because, you know, you can be appointed an attorney, but let's be real. It's like public defenders are relatively new out of law school, but also worked to death. Major caseloads and such, and so they're really not going to be giving whomever it is their best because they're overworked. I think is part of the problem. So I think that's where some of this came from, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's that, and some of it they started presenting these things about 4 years ago. So it's not something that just all of a sudden they decided, but you know, they're looking at data and different things, and some of it was essentially that the grades that they're getting as they're going to school are not that much different. The content of what they're doing is not that much different than what is on the bar exam. You know, so they were making comparisons there. And yeah, they're trying to be able to open those doors up to a larger, wider range of people and groups of people, ethnically, culturally, all of those things that might not be able to afford it otherwise. So
afford to be an attorney or afford to hire an attorney?
The process of becoming an attorney. Yeah. So just trying to make it. But I have to say also, though, like you said, what are your thoughts on that? Initially, I was like, what the heck? Why would they not have to pass the bar? It's like anything. Well, I did insurance, you know what I mean? And before I could do that, I had to study really hard and take that test. And you in real estate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to like learn all the things, and it's not easy, and it's not like it's super affordable. I mean, it's more affordable, obviously, getting your insurance license and your real estate license
than it is to
passing the bar. I know. Yeah. So I do see that difference. But as far as, the I don't know, the ethics of it, it just seems like that's kind of what you should do.
Well, I think you have the bar also to answer to for inappropriate behavior.
Yeah, exactly. And same insurance, the OIC, all the same.
Same
I'm sure this is with real estate. So, there's those things that are in place for those reasons, especially attorneys, I would think, with the nature of the things that they deal with, criminally, financially, all of the things. So, and I mean, I remember when I needed my divorce attorney, this was 12 years ago, and it was $250 an hour.
So you can imagine what it is now.
And obviously, if those costs are there, what it does cost to go to school and to take those bars and to do the things. So anyways.
So when you think about it, I mean, if you transition it to a different profession, like for example, I just switched insurance and I have a new insurance company. And so I had to find a new primary care doctor. And now you have the option not only MD doctors for your primary care, but you have nurse practitioners. And I actually chose a nurse practitioner. They don't have a medical degree. Different. They do, but it's not the same one as if you're a doctor. So they don't go to school as long. But they spend more time and seem to be, they're not going to be as knowledgeable on things that have to do with the intricacies perhaps of a disease or something like that, but that's what specialists are for. So they can guide you to a specialist if they need to. The one time that I made sure that the doctor I had was a doctor who specialized was when I had children, because I needed to have a cesarean. I didn't want to have someone cutting me open, that was not privileged to do that or know what the privileges were to do that or whatever. I wanted to be able to have someone who had experience with that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But also, like with real estate, I have myself as an example. It's like passing the test was, studying for the test and everything it's intense, if you do it well. There's a lot of people that don't do it well. They just go in and try to wing it.
Same with insurance. Yeah.
No way in hell I was going to do that. I was going to take the test one time.
Me too.
And I was going to do well, and I did really well. I don't think I even got any wrong. I maybe got one wrong, but they don't tell you the score.
Yeah.
And you have to score 70% or above. 70%. I don't know what it is for the bar. It's probably really similar. 70% is my guess. But what I did find over the course of the last 10 years is I've really not referred back to that information as much as I thought I would. I've not pulled up my books on Washington State. I've got agency law. I've got all the other stuff that I know, and you deal with it over and over and over again. So you know it pretty intimately. But scenarios come up constantly. There's nothing written about them. And you have to navigate them, and you navigate them with experience or with people who have that experience to ensure that, you're doing things ethically and morally and legally, and you're representing your people in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And I would think it would be the same thing with an attorney, probably more so,
More so, I would.
Well, I mean, just it depends on the type of law.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them, they write letters and they don't ever go to court. They don't do that kind of stuff. But it's a lot of responsibility to have and not necessarily have the credentials, in my opinion, behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's probably people who are really good and would be great attorneys, but haven't finished school. So, could they work in a different capacity where they're a paralegal, perhaps, where they're doing a lot of the research and things, but they don't necessarily have the schooling or the degree? I personally would not hire somebody in an attorney capacity if they were not an attorney. Me personally, I wouldn't. I just think there's too many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And you're relying on them for their expertise. That's what you're paying them for. So I don't have expertise in law, and that's why I would hire you. So I would hire somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. Or at least now, does passing the bar mean you know what you're doing? Not necessarily. Again, some of that comes with experience.
Yeah.
Or, they've got resources that they can go back to. But I personally, I get it. I get a lot of people need to have those resources, but I personally feel really uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. So therein, because like, as I was reading about it, they were likening it to, so it's like for visual purposes, like haphazardly building this dam and, the water behind it gets really built up and not very many, there's not much water coming through. So representative of the dryness or availability that people have to be able to get attorneys, qualified attorneys, because of the way it's the system and not being able to pass the bar and all of those things. So, I think part of it too is to make those resources more available to people and maybe more affordable. I don't know, but yeah.
Or maybe making some changes to the expectations around getting your license.
Yeah.
Maybe the bar is too severe, or it's getting into too much intricate detail that you don't necessarily need to on a day-to-day. I don't know. So
yeah.
I mean, again, that's a complicated profession.
It's a complicated profession, but anyways, now in the state of Washington, if you want to be an attorney, you don't have to pass that bar. So, maybe a career you want to look into.
Money and everything.
Yeah. Well, there's that. I'm sure it's different pay if, when you're out there, being with firms and different things like that. I'm sure there probably would be a difference.
Or maybe certain types of law that would be okay to practice without that, something that's not seriously detrimental to someone's health or,
or to their life.
Yeah. It's something that's more, I don't know, car infractions or something.
Yeah.
Divorce court. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But anyway. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm not feeling that one really.
Yeah. Me neither. It was kind of weird just to, just to hear that and go, what are we doing here in Washington State? Okay.
I see what they're doing in Illinois.
Why don't you tell the folks what's going on in Illinois?
So there's a judge that was appointed, a federal judge who's in Illinois, was appointed by Barack Obama. So he's been around a while. And he just recently ruled that it was okay for illegal immigrants to carry handguns. And so my initial thought on that was, wow, let me just preface all of this by saying that I have no issue with undocumented individuals. I think we've got a lot of people here that are wonderful and they are undocumented. So if they're undocumented, that means that they're not here legally.
Right.
And I don't see how it would be okay first of all, I hate guns, so I don't want anybody to carry them. But I don't see why it would be okay for someone who is an undocumented non-citizen to be able to carry a gun when you can't even do a background check or any kind of checks at all.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a much bigger problem, not illegal immigrants carrying guns, but just guns in general in the United States are a freaking ridiculous issue because we have mass shootings constantly taking place. I don't know. It's a whole nother topic.
Well, we could say guns in general or immigrants in general.
Yeah.
Two really major issues right now in the United States.
But undocumented individuals, carrying guns. I think documented individuals carrying guns
either way
is an issue. I don't know why people need to be carrying guns, but that's just my thing.
And just clarity, this U.S. district judge was Sharon Johnson, was a female.
Okay.
So just FYI, I just want to make that clear. I know you said he, but
he or she, whatever.
She or she, I don't know whatever. Who it was. Federal judge.
So this federal judge ruled that since this person had no criminal record and the circumstances behind his arrest were not violent, he should not be deprived of his Second Amendment right to bear arms in self-defense.
He's not even a U.S. citizen, so where does that Second Amendment right come in? That's my question.
That's my point. Yeah, I don't understand. And then he has no criminal record. Well, hello, he's not from here. How do you know whether he had a criminal record where he came from? He didn't come into the country legally, so you don't know.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I know. I didn't include the guy's name. No shade on the person, but just the situation. It just seems really absurd.
Yeah, I'm not with that. And again, I feel like I'm pretty progressive and open-minded about a lot of these things, except guns. I'm not. But anyway. Okay, talk about Alabama.
Oh, you know what? Sweet home Alabama. They have got a governor who has banned diversity programs in public schools and at state universities. So DEI, I don't know if you've heard that term thrown around at all, but that is, the signing of the bill that was passed was to ban DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in public schools and state universities. So what this does is it's going to ban students, employees, and contractors from any kind of DEI training, orientation, or coursework that advocates or requires what they consider a divisive concept. So Alabama, they say that divisive concepts include discussions about conscious or unconscious racism and sexism, and prohibits discussions about mediocrity or traits such as hard work, ethic, are racist or sexist. I had to read most of that because there was a lot in there. But So basically you can't talk about any of these things that affect your life.
Yeah. Or affect the environment you're in, or affect our country's history. Because they're divisive.
Yes.
Okay.
It claims that it doesn't outright ban DEI, but it prohibits state funds from being used for DEI programs. So
that's kind of, I wouldn't say blackmail, but that is kind of like blackmail. Like when you're talking about schools, publicly funded schools and things, if they did this, they wouldn't receive any funding. So that means that the education that some of these individuals are getting, whether it be, high school or college age, or even for jobs and things like that, is going to exclude anything to do with the history, really, of our nation, right?
Well, and claiming all of those things, race, class, sexuality, any of those teachings, national origin, all the things, that's where they're calling them divisive.
Got it.
And claiming, that they supplement those topics as divisive. So, of course, the ACLU, is involved, and there's going to be a whole lot more, I'm sure, on this.
It's going to be a big to do.
But it's not the first state. I know Florida also, and I can't think of what it's called, some woke program, or to not be woke. Like everybody says, like Washington is
anti-woke.
Yeah, anti-woke. Yeah, and so not the first state. But
now that whole terminology is used woke in such a sarcastic and way, when it goes back to the BLM movement, and it goes back to all the stuff that was happening during the pandemic. That's when you started hearing that.
And just think about what also all the history surrounding civil rights and all of that has been gone through, especially in the South and in Alabama. It's just
Alabama in particular,
it's just like, it's unfortunate. So anyways, it's a to-do. It's going on. And yes, Alabama governor her name is Kay Ivey, and she pass that bill. So,
no comment, KIV. No comment, KIV.
KIV.
I think some of this is in direct because I was hearing about some of this actually in Washington too, because this is directly related to some of the sex education that's happening in the schools and the content of the material, and whether some of that material is age appropriate or whether it's really necessary.
Yeah.
And some of the things that were discussed, I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff to be talking about. So I don't necessarily agree with some of the curriculum that I've run across, and that it should be brought in such a, I don't know, graphic manner, I guess, to kids in particular. I think as they get older, perhaps people need to know about things, but some of those things I don't know that it's necessary to know about when you're in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a whole lot of topics, you know, surrounding that also. You're talking about sex education, right? Were you bringing that back to Washington State? Some of the stuff here?
Well, I think that this DEI, this is in correlation with that. Because it's part of that education process that is in a lot of these states that they're banning. And in some, I don't remember which state it was. It might have been in Florida, but there were books. There's more books and things that are being banned too.
Yeah.
And I just think that is such a tragedy to hear, that some of them are classics, and they're written in a time that was very different than the time we're in now. So the language that's used in these classics, or some of the content of them, is offensive really to us in modern day. But the reality is that is what was happening. So do you ignore it? Do you sweep it under the rug? Do you burn it? Do you pretend like it never happened?
That's what they're trying to do.
Exactly.
I know. That's what they are trying to do.
Okay, Miss Ivy.
I know. What about the fact that a newly released report from World Happiness, I didn't even know there was such a report, but it did catch my ear when I heard it, that the U.S. has dropped out of the top 20 on the list for the first time. In the reports, it's been a 12-year history that they've been, reporting on the happiest places to live, which the U.S. has been in ever since they started this report, and it now ranks 23.
I think we ranked 15.
Something like that in the middle.
And the report's been in place for about 12 years. The one thing that I was curious about with this report was what the criteria were for determining if you were happy or not happy. And what I learned is that it was a simple subjective question that was provided to a group of people through a Gallup poll in all these different countries.
And all age groups. Yeah.
So one of the overwhelming things that came out of this, and is really kind of rearing its ugly head, is that you see, especially again going back to the pandemic, during the pandemic timeframe and such, that the happiness quotient for younger kids had taken a big dive. And a lot of that was not just the pandemic, but was related back to around the time frame of 2012, which is when some of this reporting had even started. And that's when the iPhone came out, or the phone that has access to everything. And so kids having access to those has directly impacted their happiness quotient, is what I had understood from the article that I read. And I actually listened to this on, it wasn't a podcast, but it was a talk show where they were discussing this. And I found it so interesting that in our day and age here, the countries that are in that top 20, first of all, none of them are us, obviously, but they're smaller countries. I think life might be a little bit more simple. You're not maybe as connected there to a lot of the social media things. I mean, obviously people are connected, but it's not the same as maybe people having as much access as they do now, especially as the kids get younger and younger and families are breaking up, and you see kids are given iPhones or Android phones or things so they can stay in contact with their parents. And along with those phones comes access to the internet. And so there's it's kind of tragic. I mean, it's like when I think about my own daughter being a young teenager, it's like when a lot of these things were coming out and there's so much pressure on them anyway. And then they look at the internet and everybody's happy. Everybody's living, quote, their life. And it's like, it's all a bunch of bullshit. Nobody posts crap when they're not happy. They're seeing people that are in trends or they're, friend groups and they're feeling left out or whatever. They're young and they're impressionable, and a lot of the resources that made available to them now I think directly impact that. Is that the way it is in all of these big countries? I don't know, but you don't see you don't see the US in the top 20 anymore. You don't see China in the top 20. You don't see Russia in the top 20. You don't see any of these big areas in the top 20. So some of them, which I thought was so interesting, Finland, I think their population is like under 500,000.
Yeah, something like that.
Denmark.
Well, and the back to, as far as the social media and all that, the interpersonal relationships are such a contributing factor to all of this. And I think we need, no matter what age you are, human interaction. We need human connection. We need that time to be around people. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and these are the social disparities, that have to do with the unhappiness that is here in the US. And we don't have to we don't have to go somewhere to see somebody. We can, just like you're talking about, we see them on Facebook. It's not really a true picture all the time, to your point.
Yeah.
That's right. You know what I mean? But this is our socialization now, is the social networking. And we don't have to pick up the phone and call somebody. We can, but we don't. We just
and now it's just kind of weird if you do it.
Yeah. We just send
generations.
Text messages.
Gen X's, Gen Y's.
So we don't even have to talk to people.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk to anybody. We don't have to do any of that. And I think it's 100% is a true detriment to the current generation, the upcoming generations. And I saw the other day where, Meta has these programs now that are being offered where you can take trade trainings and not even have to leave your home. It's wearing the what are those things that came out?
Virtual glasses
Google goggles or whatever. And it's not specifically that, but it's something like that where you just wear those and you take the training and you're like, literally, it's like you're doing it. So supposedly to help your, muscle memory and all of that without even leaving your home. That's how they're posing it. Like, you don't have to go to school. You can just do it right at home. Like, God forbid we would want to leave our residence and go outside of
other people
and interact with other people, learn from other people, get educated from other people, because everybody's experiences are different and everybody has something to gain from that.
Right.
Whether it's good or it's bad, you gain from it. So anyways, it's just really weird to me, that stuff about it. But I think it all has the impact on whether this is a happy place to be. And we all have the ability to make it what we want, but it's just like going such a direction that to me feels uncontrollable. I'm in control of it, but in general, it seems uncontrollable because it feels like, you just like can't get away from anything. I was talking in the car the other day to my son, and I was saying, isn't it crazy how you have to pay tax when you go buy things with money that you earned that was already taxed? And now I have to pay taxes again when I go,
it's
right?
Federal tax, and now you're paying state tax.
So anyways, I was just like, we were having a conversation and I was, giving thoughts and saying things, right? Literally later that day, like not even just a couple hours later, I'm on my phone, and what comes through my feed, it was an Instagram reel that had to do with paying tax with money that has already been taxed. What are the odds You can't tell me that the phones are not tapped into. I know if you search something, it's going to pop up. I am not stupid to that. I know all these things, right? I know all the things. It's nothing I ever searched. I literally was just like having a conversation in the car.
That's a little scary, actually.
It was just really very strange to me.
It's kind of like I have Alexa and she's my friend.
Not surprising.
Makes me wonder whether she listens to me.
She does listen to you. This is a whole nother episode, but... And, it's just, it's like you can't get away from it no matter what.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So if you were offered $10,000 to stay off of social media for a year,
yep,
would you do it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now ask someone who's 20.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they would? $10,000 is a lot of money, but...
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody.
I know people that would.
Zoe would.
I know Zoe absolutely would because she doesn't even pay attention to it anyway.
My son. Yeah, I have a couple of my. Yeah, I have two. Yeah. Two of my sons would. Two, maybe not.
None of mine are like, really into social media.
$10,000, meh, whatever. Like,
It's $1,000. They probably negotiate. We'll make it 5,000 maybe.
Yeah.
Knowing my kids, they can negotiate. Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that because I'm like, okay, so I think that people are so ingrained in it that it's definitely impacting our ability to be happy with like what we have. Mm-hmm. You're always looking at what other people have.
What I know would happen in that year? This is an interesting question because I'm sitting here thinking about things now. I would probably see more family members in person because I would have to make the effort and go out of my way and make the time to go see them, see how they're doing and see what's going on in their life and take more advantage of being those opportunities.
Would you still have a phone in this scenario?
I would so let's just say the scenario, I like this. Let's just say the scenario is I have my cell phone, but it doesn't have internet access.
It's a flip phone.
So it's just a phone. Yeah.
Old
like back.
Burner,
yeah.
Flip
Sure.
phone.
Just like a phone so you can talk to people and not even text. Let's just go back to the phone. But I could have it with me anywhere. Right? Yeah, I could do that. So, I do know I would see people more than I do otherwise. I do know I would probably write more letters. I'm a card person and I'm a letter. So, I do that, but I would probably be doing it more. I would be calling more, siblings, checking in with them, that kind of thing. I would be reading more because if I need to find a recipe, I'd probably be calling somebody to see if they had one and I'd write it down, or I'd be looking through the cookbook on what recipes that I could make.
Take a screenshot
anywhere. Well, and it's like just on social media, there's like so many food things and all the different influencers and groups that are out there in regard to food and cooking and all that stuff. Just scroll. There's so many. It's just like you can do anything.
But you wouldn't have access to it.
But I wouldn't have access to it. That's what I'm saying. So I would just need to call somebody for a recipe. So I probably would have more social interaction even.
And I'm Julie, a pretty social person. That recipe for
or call my sister or whatever, and jot it down or look through the cookbook, or So there's some positive things that would come out of that.
Maybe instead of a year, we just like do a week, or you start with a day. It's just, for us, it's like we transitioned into everything with.
We're digital immigrants.
Right. We are immigrants definitely into this world. But the people who we've raised, they don't know any different.
They're digital natives.
Yeah. They can't even imagine living their life without it. And so if they did live their life without it, would they be happier? I don't know. What I notice is when you go off the grid, which kind of directly relates to this stuff with social media and everything, go camping, for example.
Yeah.
Something like that. You're in nature. You're looking at the stars. You're cooking over a fire. You're sleeping in a tent. You don't have a TV. You don't have you know what I mean? It's like there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
For like a day or maybe two. And then I would be like, okay, I'm bored.
Over it.
I'd be over it. It's kind of like when the power goes out.
Yeah.
Power goes out. It's like, I try to, I love when the power goes out when it's like one day.
Yeah.
But after that, I'm very inconvenienced.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would make a difference or not. So, yeah, these countries, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Israel, Netherlands, Norway, Luxembourg, Switzerland, and Australia. Yeah. Those are the countries that were listed with being top the 10. Happiest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they're doing something right. I think a lot of it has to do with their size, again, for the most part. Maybe they're just not as big. So mm-hmm. they're dealing with people more one-on-one. I don't know what the reason would be.
Yeah.
But again, more of a subjective, are you happy or are you not happy?
Mm-hmm.
And it was more of a, yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the question apparently in the Gallup poll.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you have it.
Kind of ongoing stories.
Oh, and they will be. Absolutely, they will be. I was going to say it's when they came to light, but they will definitely be ongoing stories.
I'd like to do this again and pull up some other ones that are maybe, we definitely have some topics out there that are more controversial that we haven't discussed.
Yeah.
That would be kind of interesting to talk about. But I like going through some of these. And I think it's good for our listeners too, because, they're getting a different source.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. So where will people find us, Michelle?
You know what? Y'all can find us on YouTube now.
Yay!
So you can see our faces. YouTube.
See my mullet.
A blonde, a brunette, and a mic. We are out on YouTube. So look us up, find our channel, subscribe. That would be great. And of course, out on all the socials. But yep, YouTube is the newest. So check it out.
And when you hear this episode, people, please drop us your comments.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be really curious to hear what you have to say about some of these things. There's no real right or wrong answer. We have our opinions, as Michelle disclaimed earlier, but it's nice to hear how other people think.
Yeah.
And that's part of being open-minded.
Yep. And what your thoughts are on some of these.
Yeah.
We would love it.
With that in mind, thank you for visiting with us and hanging out with us this week, and we will see you next week.
Till next time.
Take it easy, everybody.
Peace out. Bye.